Welcome back to Indonesian Affixes known in one big hit. In this episode, I'll be talking about the prefix D. D is arguably the most controversial affix in Indonesian, despite being very simple. It has been called passive, object focus, object voice, undergo a pivot, ergative voice. In this episode, I will call it object focus. I don't think this is the best name, but it is the name that most Indonesian teachers in Australia use. To explain D, I will first add one thematic role to the list created in the Kan and E video. A patient is someone or something that an action is done to or is affected by the action. And we need one more term, undergoer. All of these roles are undergoers. That is to say that if it's not an agent, it's an undergoer. Once we have these labels, D is really simple to explain. When a verb is prefixed with D, the subject of the sentence is the undergoer, and the object of the sentence is the agent. This is similar to the passive in English, but differs in two ways. One, the passive in English is an intransitive verb, which means it has a subject but no direct object. Two, object focus is far more common in Indonesian than the passive is in English. Note that it is really important to make the distinction between undergoer and object, because with M, the undergoer is the object, whereas with D, the undergoer is the subject. This is why the term object focus is not ideal. It's also important to talk in terms of the undergoer rather than the patient, because when Kan and E are added as a suffix, it is their thematic relation that is promoted to subject position. With D, Kan, the subject is either the causee or the benefactor, whereas with D, E, the subject is either the goal or the recipient. The final point to be made before we get to examples is that the D prefix cannot be used if the agent is stated and the agent is you or me. What happens with you and me? We'll find out in the next episode of Known in One Big Hit. And now for some examples. Mengenal means get to know, whereas dikenal means is known. For example, orang itu dikenal teman saya means that person is known by my friend. Mengenali means to recognize, and dikenali means to be recognized. Mendalam means to go deep, but it has no object, so di dalam is not possible, except if it's a preposition di rather than the prefix, but that's another story. Mendalamkan means to make deep. Contrariwise, di dalamkan means to be made deep. For example, sungai didalamkan karena banjir means the river was made deep because of the flood. Mendalami means to go deep into something, whereas didalami means to be entered into deeply. Menyatu means to unite, but it's an intransitive verb, which means it has no undergoer, so disatu cannot exist. Menyatukan means to unite, and disatukan means to be united. Membesar means to get big, and similar to satu, dibesar doesn't exist. Membesarkan means to make big, and dibesarkan means to be made big. For example, semua balon ini dibesarkan untuk pesta means all of these balloons were made big for the party. Memukul means to hit, and dipukul means to be hit. Memukulkan means to hit with or to hit for, whereas dipukulkan means to be used to hit or is the one for which the hitting is done. An example of the former is tongkat dipukulkan guru kepada murid, which means the stick is what the teacher used to hit the student with. Memukuli means to beat up, and dipukuli means to be beaten up. In English, we can use relative clauses with objects, but in Indonesian, relative clauses can only be used with a subject. So, if you want to use a relative clause for an undergoer, you must use the object-focused construction. For example, in the sentence, the boy that Pak Jeremy beat up his little brother, the boy is the object of the relative clause, Pak Jeremy beat up the boy, but it is the subject of the main clause, the boy beat up his little brother. In English, we can also make the relative clause passive, but this is more awkward. The boy that was beaten up by Pak Jeremy beat up his little brother. In the Indonesian translation, we can only use dipukuli in the relative clause and not memukuli because the preceding noun has to be the subject of the relative clause. So we get anak yang dipukuli Pak Jeremy memukuli adiknya. In this example, nya can only refer to anak and not to Pak Jeremy because anak is the subject of this sentence, even though it is the undergoer of the relative clause. This is also the case for questions using yang. If you are questioning the agent, you need to use a m verb, whereas if you are questioning the undergoer, you need to use a d verb. For example, siapa yang memukuli means who beat someone up, whereas siapa yang dipukuli means who was beaten up. In both of these examples, siapa is the subject of the sentence. Thanks for watching.